Setting the tone with a great query letter. Hi everyone, my name is Tracy. I am a freelance editor. I used to work at Curtis Brown Limited, and I've also worked as a newspaper correspondent, as a children's book reviewer. Um, and I'm here to talk to you today about presenting your query and your manuscript in the best light possible. So something that every query letter should have would be a strong hook or an opener. So imagine that you are an editorial assistant, an agent's assistant, and you have a box of letters every day, or, well, it used to be a physical box, and now it's more so an inbox of digital query letters every day. And you have a limited amount of time to really go through the box and consider everything, because most of the query letter and manuscript reading is going to be done on your own time. So after work, on weekends, on the subway. So what you want to do is immediately tell that agent or editor that this query is worth taking the time to read. So that is how the strong hook or opener works to your advantage. It could be one or two lines. It probably is best to avoid the hypothetical question. There was a while that was in vogue. Something like, how would you feel if you walked down the street and somebody took your suitcase and, punched you in the back? Well, you'd feel bad. You'd probably be annoyed. And so there was a while where you would see just the constant hypothetical. And the original idea was that you were trying to immediately create an emotional connection. But unfortunately, what usually happened is the hypothetical was written so that your snarky inner voice would be like, well, that would be bad, or that would be great. Your strong synopsis paragraph is where you really tell us the meat of the story, and we'll get a little deeper into what exactly the meat is. Most of this workshop today is going to focus on your synopsis paragraph in terms of the content that should be conveyed and also the tone that you want to convey. Your basic manuscript information, so that's your title, genre, and word count. So something like Emma is a romantic comedy of 40,000 words, or, The Hunger Games is a dystopian fantasy of probably about 50,000 words, 60,000 words. Your appropriate bio paragraph. And I say appropriate in that if you are someone who doesn't have a lot of credits, if this is your first novel or picture book manuscript, that's great. What you do want to say are things that might relate to the book. So if you've written a book about ducks and you happen to have ducks on your farm, that would be, an appropriate tidbit to include. Things that you never want to say would be, this is my first manuscript, or this has been rejected 30 other times, or, my kids love this, or, anything that really doesn't present yourself in the most professional light possible. Your contact information, you'd be surprised how often that is sometimes left out. And then also proper formatting. Um, so again, it used to be that query letters were physical letters. There are some subtle differences when you are emailing a query. Um, so I have a wonderful agent, but were I to be querying, what you would put, and everyone's guidelines will be a little different, but in terms of the email, you want to make sure that your subject line says query and then the title and your name. All of the header information that you would have in a physical letter, so your address, the date, all of that does not need to be included. This is an email, so you don't need a physical address where this letter isn't being physically sent. And then at the bottom, you'll notice that you don't have the 4 spaces in between the closing and the name for signature because you won't be signing it. And in looking at this sample query, you'll notice that the bio paragraph is rather long. Again, if you're a debut author, do not feel like you need to pad this at all. In truth, I could probably even shrink this a line or two if I wanted to. Okay, so now for your first exercise. What we're going to do is identify the key points that your synopsis needs to convey. So I'd like you to pick a manuscript that you are preparing to query and answer the following questions. 1, who is your protagonist? And as a subset, what do they want physically? In other words, what physical goal are they trying to attain? So if they are, if their sister is missing and they have to go find them, then their physical goal is to save their sister. And then what is their emotional journey? So maybe they were the ones watching their sister, and there's a history of them being a mess up. And so emotionally, they are trying to get over the guilt of being the last one to be with the sister, of being the one to let the sister go. You want to make sure that in your synopsis, you identify both the emotional and physical journey, and that the agent or editor can see how they're related. Next, we want to talk about who is your protagonist. So write out who or what is going to be stopping your protagonist from getting what they want. And then also, what does the antagonist want physically, and why do they want it, right? So the why is the emotional arc. Why is the antagonist set up to want the exact opposite of what the protagonist wants? So then I want you to write a quick line or two. How does the protagonist plan to get what they want? And then how does the antagonist plan to stop them? So all of you at Right on Con have a slight advantage in that you can pause this and take the time to fill this out. If you were working with me at a conference, you would have a limited amount of time. So, I mean, really, you want to get everything down into 1 or 2 line nuggets. Who's your protagonist? What do they want physically and emotionally? Who is your antagonist? What do they want physically and emotionally? How does the protagonist plan to get what they want? And how does the antagonist plan to stop them? If you find that you cannot get these things down into a line or two, it might be a pause for your manuscript and maybe think about why you can't, or are there too many competing threads, or it's something to consider, and it's definitely something that an agent and editor considers when they read the queries. If they can't identify, then they do wonder, can the novel writer identify, and if not, what does that mean about the manuscript? Okay, so take a pause, and I'll see you in a moment. Okay, so the next part of our conversation is going to be about the tone or the voice of your query. So an editor or agent should be able to tell the genre of your story from the synopsis paragraph alone. When the voice doesn't match the genre, there may be an assumption that there's a larger problem. And also you want to see that there is a voice. Query writing is hard, and definitely can be a little bit more prescriptive than prose. But a query that displays the writer's voice is automatically going to stand out in the query pile. So I've pulled some jacket copy, and of course jacket copy, the pitch letters I used to write at the agency, query letters, we're all trying to do the same thing, right? We're trying to say, read this book or buy this book. So listen to the way that this is read, and tell me if you can tell the genre, assuming you have not read this, and if you haven't read this, go read this book. It's phenomenal. Okay. Jasper Rabbit loves carrots, especially Krakenhopper field carrots. He eats them on the way to school. He eats them going to Little League. He eats them walking home. Until the day the carrots start following him. Or are they? So, okay, maybe I'm not the best narrator in the world, but what you get from this query, or from this jacket copy, is that it's, it's light, but yet that twist at the bottom, right? Until the day the carrots start following him home, ... Or are they? There's that sense of danger, that hint that something is not quite right about these carrots. And then, of course, if you have read this, this is a picture book in the horror genre for, early readers. It's something that I love because in the illustrations, you get this mix of horror and film noir, but it is still age appropriate. And I think that the jacket copy here gets at that, or at least opens the door for you to read the book with the expectation set that, this isn't your average field of carrots. Okay, so the next jacket copy I wanted to take a look at is the Great Gilly Hopkins. 11-year-old Gilly has been stuck in more foster families than she can remember, and she's disliked them all. She has a countrywide reputation for being brash, brilliant, and completely unmanageable. So when she's sent to live with the Trotters, by far the strangest family yet, Gilly decides to put her sharp mind to work. Before long, she's devised an elaborate scheme to get her real mother to come rescue her. But the rescue doesn't work out, and the Great Gilly Hopkins is left thinking that maybe life with the Trotters wasn't so bad. So when you listen to this or read it, you can tell, like, this is not a fantasy, this is not a dystopian novel, this is not a romance. It's a contemporary middle grade. Again, go read it if you haven't. And you can tell because we're set in Gilly's world, right? The tone appeals to a younger 11-year-old reader, but it also it clues us into the fact that this is a family story. This is a more of an emotional journey, but also, we know Gilly. We know that Gilly is, and she is in the book, a very tough child. But she's a tough child, but there's an inner core. Okay, and finally, Every Day by David Levithan. Every day a different body, every day a different life, every day in love with the same girl. There's never any warning about where it will be or who it will be. A has made peace with that, even established guidelines by which to live. Never get too attached. Avoid being noticed. Do not interfere. It's all fine until the morning that A wakes up in the body of Justin and meets Justin's girlfriend, Rhiannon. From that moment, the rules by which A has been living no longer apply, because finally A has found someone that he wants to be with, day in, day out, day after day. So this is a fantasy, and we can kind of tell because Levithan didn't write the jacket copy, most likely, but there's world building, right? So you can see the rules, right? Don't get attached, don't get noticed, don't be. So here are the rules for A to live in this world that he's in. And then in the opening sentence, right, or sentences, every day a different body, a different life, love with the same girl. These are the rules for the novel. So in setting up this, it's one of those things that clue you in that it's a fantasy, right? A, because most people don't live in a different body every day, but also we're making ground rules. And so the assumption is, of course, this is a different time and place than the one that we are living in. Okay. So there's a PDF that has more jacket copy samples. And so I want you to take that and your answers from the first exercise and rewrite your synopsis paragraph so that you convey both the story and the tone or the voice of your story. And again, take a pause, take as long as you need, and I'll be right here when you're ready. Okay, we're back. So for the last exercise, what I'd like you to do is in the forums, post your synopsis graph only, and do not give the genre. So don't give your, the quick line about, you know, X is a novel or picture book of, blank number of words. Don't give any of that. We just want the synopsis graph. And then there is a worksheet at the end of the jacket copy list, and you can use that to help evaluate each other's queries. So we're going to ask the same questions. What's the genre? Who's the protagonist? What do they want? What does the antagonist want? How are they going to work in opposition to each other? And then in the worksheet it asks, what is this book about? So this might be the place where a reader should be able, without you saying in the synopsis graph, the theme is, or the message I'm trying to convey. But again, this should be something that a reader gleans from looking at what the protagonist's journey is, and not something that is stated, because then we run into the realm of didacticism. So to be fair to the other participants, I would love if everybody posted their synopsis graph and then answered the questions and gave their feedback to 5 other synopses. If you go in and you notice that one graph has, 8 responses, then, please find someone who maybe only has 1 or 2. So again, you hit pause, or, come back when you're ready. And I hope that there's a great discussion, and I will be around to jump in. Okay, and then once you've done that, let's analyze your feedback. So some things to ponder going forward. Were your peers able to identify the protagonist, antagonist, and their motivations using your synopsis graph? Does their summary of what the book is about match the story you intended to tell? Could your readers identify the genre without being told? Were you able to hook your potential readers? And, assuming there is room for improvement, what do you need to do to make your synopsis paragraph stronger? Okay, well that's it for me. Go forth and conquer. And, thank you for spending some time with me. I hope this was helpful. I hope you feel like you have really gotten a little deeper into query letters. I know that I spent the approach for someone who is a little more familiar with the format, but if you need to go back and pause and read the sample query letter at the beginning of the presentation, definitely go ahead and do that. Or I know that there are a ton of great presentations here on Write on Con that will probably be of help as well. So keep in touch, and good luck with your querying.